What's up, guys? It's Doodoo Poker here, back for another video. Today we are going to be talking about how to play versus fish in single raise pots. I have two hand histories that will go over what we should be doing based on MDA. Now, we will not be using GTO Wizard today because GTO Wizard is a theoretical framework. You can node lock with GTO Wizard, but it won't tell you fish tendencies. This is when we need to lean on MDA. Let's get into the action. So I have ace deuce of clubs, I am under the gun, I min raise, and my opponent, who is a fish, calls on the button. Now, how do we know he's a fish? Well, we're defining fish as a VPIP PFR gap of 9% or greater. He has 26% gap. So now we have to think about, am I incentivized to c-bet or not? Now, a lot of people are going to be range checking here. This is not what you want to do based on data. Let's look at flop data for this spot. Here is the field as single raise pot in position pre-flop caller, hijack, cutoff, and button versus out of position. What do you notice from the data versus a full c-bet of 30%? You see GTO is between 19 and 24%. Now, fish are over folding versus c-bets. This might surprise you, but they actually over fold because they're too wide pre-flop. They also under raise. So in two data points, you want to be more aggressive than theory. So we should be c-betting here, especially with our hand. Our hand has some good properties. We can pick up a lot of good turns with our hand. So we should c-bet range here, and my opponent decides to call. Now on the turn, I pick up a flush draw, but we have to think about MDA. What do fish do on the turn? Are they over calling or are they over folding? We have to look at the data to determine this. So in the data, we look at the field as a single raise pot in position pre-flop caller. We see that if I bet small, they are over calling compared to GTO. If I bet huge, they are over folding. So what you want to do in this spot is, if you have, they also over stab as well, which is important. So what you want to do in this spot is this. You want to have three hand classes, okay? When you have a really strong hand, like King 10, let's say I had King 10 of clubs. I have a lock on the hand. You want to check your nuts because you want him to bet on the turn because they overbet by 15 to 20%, as I'll show you here. See? They're betting 52% if I check. But if you have a hand like I have, you want a fold. So how do I get a fold? Well, I get a fold by overbetting. So what I do with my high equity hands that want to fold is I overbet. Because they're going to be over folding, they're folding 59% and GTO is between 51 and 56. Now with my medium strength hands, I always check. If I have a medium strength hand, let's say I have a hand like ace jack. If I have ace jack, I always check. And I check to call because I know call bet bet is over bluffed. So I have three hand classes. If I have a strong draw, I overbet to get a fold. If I have a medium strength hand, I check to check call. And if I have the nuts, I check to check call because I know call bet bet is over bluffed. So if I have a hand like King 10 of clubs, I check, he bets, I call, then I check river and check raise on the river. All right, guys, so this is one way we can exploit the fish based on MDA to overperform versus theory. All right, let's take a peek at the second hand. The second hand is another hand where we use MDA. Now I have Queen of Diamonds, Jack of Hearts. I min raise up. My opponent, who is a fish, we can tell he's a fish because of his VPIP PFR gap, calls in the small blind. Now the flop comes Ace of Hearts, King of Hearts, Deuce of Clubs. I have Queen Jack off. I have a gut shot. Am I incentivized to c-bet flop? Let's take a peek at data. We see from data, hold on, let me get this nice for you guys. We see from data that there is an overfold. This is button versus big blind, but fish aren't positionally aware, so it's going to carry over all positions. So what you see here is if I go small, GTO is folding 31 to 35%. Now fish are folding 36, so I should be more aggressive than theory. So I should c-bet here on the flop for small, which is what I do. Now my opponent calls. A 7 of clubs comes on the turn. Now, what do we know about turn? We know that ace-high boards are not good to barrel because they have a lot of ace-x in their hands. So we should not barrel turn with this on this run out. So what you do here is you always check back to try to realize your gut shot and also to see what he does on the river. The river is very important. So once the flop he calls and the turn goes check, check, what happens if he checks river? Well, if he checks river, I should always bluff. Why? Let's look at check, call, check, check, fold frequencies. Now this is button versus big blind, but remember, fish are not positionally aware. They will play very similar in every position. So here we have our trusty calculator. We figure that if I bet 70, what should MDF alpha be? What should this number be? Well, what we do is we go 70. If I bet 70, risk divided by risk plus reward should be 41%. It's 60. That means they're over folding by 19%. Let's say I go even bigger. Let's say I go 120. Okay? 120 divided by 220. 55%. They're over folding by 16%. So what you want to do here is you want to always bet. So in this hand, once I bet flop, I don't want to barrel turn because he has too much ace-x in his range. But once he checks river, now he has less ace-x in his range. So I bet river and he folds. All right, guys, so this is 2 ways you can use MDA to exploit fish in single raise pots. In the first hand, we were at a position pre-flop raiser. We realized that we want to not range c-bet on the flop and not range check, on the flop, and we want to range c-bet on the turn. Remember, we are incentivized to overbet with our draws because there's an overfold, and we check our medium strength hands and our nuts because they overstab. And in this hand, we know we're incentivized to c-bet flop, and we should not barrel turn because it's ace high. So we check back, but then when he checks river, we know there's a 15 to 20% overfold, and we bet our queen high. If you enjoyed this type of content, please give me a like, please give me a subscribe. New video every single day, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.